Welcome to the Low and Slow podcast.
We're your girls, Crystal and Laken. If you press play today, trust, you made the right decision.
And know whenever you're listening to this, it's exactly the right time.
We invite you to pull up a seat to the conversation, get curious about your current perspective,
and lean in for the opportunity to see yourself in another woman's story.
We created That Girl Magic because we've been where you are.
Here, the talk is real and the breath is steady.
Let's get into your next mindset shift.
Let me describe a woman to you, and many of you this is going to resonate with, and you probably know her pretty well. I know I do. She has done a lot of the work, like a lot of the real work, not just like the work, you know. She's put in a lot of effort into things that have made real changes in her life, like not just like reading the book and feeling temporarily inspired and, moving on to old default patterns, but like stopping the overgiving. She's, been putting in a lot of effort into building a life that feels genuinely hers and authentic to her. And she stopped tolerating things that used to be the old normal. She's very clear on who she is. Like, she got her own house, she got her own car, she got her own income and her own rhythm and her own peace, right? But that can sometimes come at a cost. And she's really proud of that, and she should be. But she hasn't really let anyone in, like really in, for a long time. And when she thinks about it, about allowing people to have a certain level of access, she's not entirely sure that she knows how anymore. And that probably sounds familiar to a lot of women.
Because here's what nobody told you about that woman, right? That woman who built those walls to protect herself during the hard season. Those walls don't automatically come down when that season ends, right? Those walls are still up, and there is a decision that has to be made about choosing to open that door, aka your heart, aka whatever it is where you're feeling that block. And for a lot of women who went through what feels like the fire to build what they have, there's risk in opening back up that door, right? So maybe that door hasn't been open in a while, and we're going to talk about it today. Welcome to the Low and Slow podcast. I'm your host, Crystal, and as always, Laken here with you. Lake, tell them about
today, we are talking about that cage that you built from your own independence, right? And what it is, why you built it, why it made complete sense, why it was totally justified, and what it's costing you in keeping it maintained.
Yes.
So we want to talk about why, like, when independence stops being the goal and starts being the strategy. Like, there is a version of independence that is the goal, and it's the thing that you were building towards when you were in a season of life where things felt like they were falling apart. So when you were overgiving, when you were overfunctioning, when you were losing yourself in your relationships, independence is medicine, right? It is healing balm. It is everything that you need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet, to build something that feels like it genuinely belongs to you, to stop outsourcing to other people, to feel okay. That's really important in that season. And being in a place where you did that, that is real and it counts. And it took a lot. It probably took everything that you had. But what's worth taking a look at is, at what point did the independence shift from being the thing that you were building towards to being the thing that you were hiding behind, that you were using as a blockade? Because there's a version of independence that is freedom, that represents freedom. And there's a version that represents control. And the version that represents freedom looks like, I know who I am and I can bring that into connection. And the control version sounds like, if I never need anyone, then no one can hurt me. And they can look really similar or even identical from the outside. Like, your social media is going to look the same, right? Like, from the outside, the representative version is going to look the same either way, but you are the only one that's going to know which one that you're living in.
Yes, gosh, what a bar. What a bar of the freedom and the control and what those look like. And I'm sure a lot of women are listening and they're like, damn, I've said that shit before. And like, ladies, from the nervous system side, here's why that happens, right? Because when you've been through a season where you've lost yourself, that connection back to yourself, when maybe you've been loving someone at the cost of your true self, right? Your stability, your trust in your own judgment. Your nervous system is filing all of those things under, hey, when you do this, this is a threat, right? This is risk. This is not safe. And not that that specific person was a threat, but like that, what does that connection look like? Underneath the connections, like that true intimacy, right? That intimacy itself is a threat. That needing someone is a threat. That letting someone in to actually be there for you is a threat. And so the nervous system starts to build this response, right? By staying regulated, by staying separate, right? It's kind of like, I want the intimacy here, but I'm like this, right? It's like, I want the connection, but I'm still keeping you in a distance just in case, right? Keeping everything that you can't control, which as we all know, we can't control anything else besides ourselves, right? At a safe distance. And we may call this standards. We may call this self-respect. We could even call this boundaries, right? We may call this like, I know my worth. And so like, this is something that I do, right? It's all out of protection. And some of it is genuinely those things, right? But that's the complicated part, is that the protection is real and so is the cage, right? And they were both built at the exact same time out of the same exact experience. And understanding the difference of like why they were built. Like one was built in that point in time to protect, to get out of almost what was already happening. And then the other one is like, wait a second, now I built this and this never comes down. And now it becomes the cage I stay in.
Yeah. But that fear that most women carry in this position is not, it's not actually fear of the other person in the equation, right? It's a fear of themselves. So specifically, if I don't trust myself in a relationship, it's not that I don't trust the other person. It's I don't trust myself not to lose myself again in that relationship. I don't trust myself not to overgive when I'm in a space where that's an opportunity, not to shrink in conflict, not to hand myself over incrementally, one self-abandonment piece at a time, right? And then wake up 6 months later and wondering like, well, where did I go? Where did that version of me, that independent woman go? I don't see her in the mirror anymore. And it's like, if you tell yourself I've done it before and I know exactly how it happens and I know what it costs me, and the most effective way I've found not to do it again is to just not let anyone close enough to trigger that old familiar pattern. So the independence isn't really about freedom in that way. It's about keeping yourself safe from yourself. And the idea behind that and naming that is not to shame anyone that's experiencing that or that's withholding or trying to protect themselves or shielding themselves in that relationship. It's because the most honest framing of what's actually happening is to be able to look at yourself in that way, to be able to reflect on that. And you can't solve for something that you're unwilling to name or unwilling to look at if you want something different.
Yeah. And I think that when we talk about this in terms of relationships, this is where like the word relationship, right? We're having relations between two people where we all know we're mirrors to each other. And each relationship is teaching us something, right? Good or bad, right? Any experience that we've had, each relationship is teaching us something about ourselves, because there's always feedback if we look in the mirror, right? And I think that if we're willing to name it, like if we're willing to be in the relationship, there is a level of accountability or ownership that has to happen for us to be able to name some things, right? It's like we can't just be pointing about all these things out in another person and then not being willing to look at or name those things within ourselves. And that's where it's like, when we say we're mirrors of each other, we don't just say that to sound cute, like we are. There's something that maybe you have moved out of, or maybe that you are not seeing within yourself that you're seeing so clearly in others. And we're the first to maybe say that about someone else, but then we're not willing to look at ourselves. Or maybe it's like, now that we've seen that within ourselves, if this other person isn't seeing that within themselves, now we're the first to be like, how do you not see that? Right. And it's like, again, it's all just holding up the mirror to each other. And I want to sit with something for a second before we move anywhere else, because the woman who learned to not trust herself in relationship didn't just arrive there randomly. It's not like a stork dropped her off on that doorstep. She arrived there because she has had that real evidence before. She arrived there because she watched herself disappear in a relationship however many years ago, right? She watched herself override her own signals, aka the things that were coming up from her body that told her, hey, red flag, hey, you're putting yourself on the back burner, hey, XYZ, right? She watched herself stay past the expiration date of when things were not working for her anymore, right? And past the point of replenishment or even repair, right? She knows this place well because she knew the survival identities that were attached to being in that place, which was the shrinking, which was the accommodating, which was the managing. And all in all of like, all of what we're talking about, I bet every woman has had their own experience. And I think that's something so special of like when women can actually talk about this stuff, there's so much shame and guilt around losing yourself, right? Around looking in the mirror and not seeing something that you liked. And so like that distrust that happens, it makes sense. The protection that she built, it makes sense. The distance that she created between, you know, herself and anyone else to protect herself, it makes sense. It's like, sis, it's valid, right? And I know because we've been there, right? Like I get it. And here's what I want to offer is that that version of you who did those things was operating with the tools, was operating without the tools that maybe you have now. Right. And she didn't know what she didn't know. And she couldn't see what she could see clearly now. And she didn't have the capacity that she has now that she's moved out of that situation and has come back to what she needs now. And now it's like if you're going to start at a blank canvas, right, where you are now in this state of independence and you are now wanting to make some changes here when it comes to, the cage of independence that you built, right? Keeping yourself locked away from the connection to protect yourself from a version of you that actually isn't fully existing anymore. That's like a tax that you're having yourself pay. It's like you keep going around the Monopoly board collecting 200 and like you keep paying that tax on work that you've already moved out of. And this is where it's like, I was talking about this with a client earlier this week of like, we keep in between these identities, we keep trying to like think about a crab. It outgrows the shell. And then if that crab went back to that same shell, that shit no longer fits. But you're still paying tax on, well, I once used to be able to fit into that shell.
Yeah. So if you think about the last time that you kept somebody at a distance when there was at least a part of you that actually wanted to let them in, like what if you were to ask yourself, you know, was the fear actually about them, or was it about what you've done before in a previous version of yourself or in a previous relationship, and that you're afraid would happen again, right? Like, and can you be honest with yourself in that? And can you notice which of those fears is actually coming up, right? Like, is it a current fear or is it a past fear?
Yeah. And being able to distinguish that too is like, this is where it's like, if you're in that place, can you give yourself some fucking credit for that? Because it's hard to do that sometimes in real time. Like we talk about this all the time of like, when you start to get into this work more, when you have a real life example of like how you're integrating or how you're applying that, like sometimes it is challenging of like, oh, I was, you know, like when we say like being triggered, right? It's like, oh, that was how I was immediately reacting, which was the old way. And now, you know, in a different scenario, this is how I'm acting now. It's like having that distinction is sometimes like a part of the mind fucked, right? Because we're like, can I actually give myself permission to have a new experience other than the one that I already know of? That's what the outcome, like that's what handling like that gives me this outcome. Like, can I actually give myself permission to see it different? And people ask all the time, like, more like vague questions around like, well, how do I learn to trust again? Right. Or like, how do I open back up after I've been hurt? Or how do I, stop being so like guarded or like how do I move out of the state of like protection? And here's like the reframe that I think changes everything is like the goal is not to trust other people more. And I know that's what probably that feels like at first. the goal is to start building that trust within yourself more, right? Because we can't control what's happening around us with other people. And if we are being guarded, right, that's something that's happening from our nervous system. If we are opening back up, that's something that's happening internally here, right? And I think like when people say that saying of like, you're wearing your heart on your sleeve, right? It's like, you have to be able to open back up in order to know what it even feels like to get hurt again. But if we are never allowing ourselves, like if we're white knuckling and we're not allowing ourselves to go like this, that doesn't give any opportunity for things to be different. We're just staying here and expecting that all that stuff builds around the cage, which is actually blocking us from getting us what we actually want. And real trust that we keep talking about is trust is if someone starts like taking too much, right? That you will notice if some things that feels, doesn't feel right, that you can actually name it in real time and not dismiss it, right? Trust is if that a boundary gets crossed, that you have the capacity to hold it or speak up for it and not just allow it to get overridden, right? Because then you're also overriding your own boundaries. Trust is if that you need to leave, that you will leave, right? Because it's like this trust that you're building is also this trust is for me linked to like this integrity you have with yourself or like this, like your value, your morals, right? It's like all of these things. It's like trust is the line through. So when you start to trust yourself that way, like not blindly, not naively, but with this like earned confidence of someone who has done the work, you don't need to worry as much as about what anyone else might do, right? Like this trust that you've built within yourself, you can, as long as you're good with that within you, then that's all that matters, because whatever they will do is what they're going to do. And like, you're going to handle it for what's yours.
Yeah. And I think when we're looking at what self-trust actually looks like in practice, I think this gets confused with confidence or certainty a lot. And some, people think that it's a situation where I have to feel a sense of readiness right before I can do the thing. We talked about that before, but self-trust is not a feeling that is just going to arrive. Like it's a track record that you have to build. So it's accumulating the evidence that you do actually show up for yourself when you are in need, that when you notice something is off, you actually do say so. When your line gets crossed, you do hold the line. When, you start to drift, you come back to yourself. And the track record, that's the thing that makes it safe to open that door for other people. And it's not going to be the certainty of what's going to happen on the other side of it after I open the door, right? Because no one has that. It's the certainty about yourself on your side of the door and what's going to happen when someone comes in. Like you built the independence and you built the life and you built the self-knowledge. And now the question is whether you can trust that the woman who built all of that can also bring it into connection without losing it. And I think that if you're honest with yourself, you already know the answer. And you've probably known for a long time, but it's just that the cage gets really, really comfortable because it's really easy to operate in an environment that's controlled where you don't have to worry about any other person coming in to disrupt it.
Yeah. And I think this is the piece here where we talk about when it comes to like capacity. It's like we can have all these desires about things, but do we have the nervous system that allows us to hold all what we're desiring? Right? Because the person who's in the cage doesn't mean they don't want the intimacy. They absolutely fucking do. And sometimes it's like, that's the hardest thing, is to say like, I'm preventing myself from actually getting what I'm wanting here. And it's not something that I'm a lot of the times, like consciously or deliberately doing. It's something that's like happening in the background, right? Because of that previous reference point. And like, do we have the capacity to hold all we're desiring? Per se, right? It's like we want the thing, we say we want the thing, and well, what happens when we actually get it? And that's where like a nervous system that's operating out of that fear is not going to allow us to hold it. Trust is.
Yeah. And the thing about that life, right? Like that beautiful life that you worked really hard to create is that you didn't build it so that you could just live inside of it forever and never let anything unpredictable touch it. Like, you built this amazing independent life so that you could leave it and have it be a home to come back to, and then leave it again when you needed to, and then be able to come back to it as your safe space, as your home. Like, the safety was never meant to be the finish line, right? It was meant to be a foundation that you can operate from, like the thing to be able to come home to, and like the grounding force for you, right? So that you can take a risk, go outside of it, and then know that it's available to you when you need it. But it's only useful if you build something on top of it. Like, what good is the foundation if I don't use it for anything, right? It's like a home base is only useful if you actually leave the base sometimes and then have it to be able to come back to. So you create all this safety so that you could go out and live your life fully and know that no matter what happens out there, outside of this cage, right, or outside of this foundation, if we're using it in a healthy way, you could always come back. And that's the whole point. That was really always the point of it. And it's like, which way are you using it? Because the life itself, again, like we said, can look the same from the outside. It's a matter of, am I using it to protect myself from everything outside of it, or am I using it as a platform to be able to launch from and then come back to for a soft landing?
Yeah. When you said that part around the foundation, right? I think a lot of times when we think of the foundation, it's that all the work we've done is like when a plant, right? We're watering it. We're giving it the nutrients, right? We're tending to the roots. Sometimes we can't always see what's happening underneath, and then it comes out on the other side, right? But it's like, if the foundation, if we weren't doing all those pieces before, or excuse me, if we were doing all those pieces before, and then we don't allow something to emerge from the top of it, it's like, what was the point of all of that? And like the home base analogy is, I think of baseball. Like, okay, you have home base, right? You hit the ball, you go to first, right? And then maybe you can steal, right? That's the risk. That's maybe going for the relationship. That's letting a friend in. That's, after a breakup, putting yourself back out there, right? That's replenishing a relationship that maybe, has been out of your life for 15 years, right? It's allowing yourself to know, like, okay, yeah, we'll go back around and go back to home base, but I'm going to take some risks on the way there. I'm going to steal a base or two. I'm going to put myself back out there because I know that I'm crossing that finish line again, and I'll start at home base again. And it doesn't mean like, just allow yourself to keep getting hurt, but it's like, no, you know that you have something to come back to.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes we forget that as women too, because it's like, there's the energy of like masculine and feminine energy within all of us. And so it's like what I've found even within myself of like, there's been woundedness on both the masculine and feminine parts of myself. And I think there was a season where there was a lot around the wounded feminine. And for me personally, I would say right now of like working on what has been the wounded masculine and how do I anchor myself into that, more of that. And so I stopped depending on that masculine from others externally. And I think when you can go into both ends of those parts of yourself, and masculine and feminine doesn't mean mom and dad in your life, right? Like that's not it. Or like a man and a woman in your life. That means like the duality of the parts of yourself. And, the independence is a lot of that is the masculine energy, right? It doesn't mean that feminine can't be independence, but it's the masculine side of yourself that like still does the thing, that provides, that makes sure you're good, right? That like for me, I have this analogy of like, there's some times where I'm so in the masculine for others. And so then when I need to anchor into the masculine for me, it's like, I just need to be in the feminine and like let that out. Right. But it's trusting that the foundation that I've built in myself, that I can still feel all these feelings and not drift away. Right. Like I need something grounding within myself to like hold me down there. And I think it's been a journey of finding that within myself again, in not the wounded way, in the way that like pushed past all the stuff and, ignored or just worked more distracted. And like, right, there's like the wounded side of those things. Now to do it in a grounded masculine way within myself is just look very different. And, like even within myself, I want to honor, like I share with you guys that example because I want to honor the work that it took to build that because yeah, it's real. It's to be able to say like, on both ends. Here's where some were wounded on both ends, and here's where I have more, like, just to acknowledge I have more work to do here, or I get to do more work here, right? That work is real. It's confronting sometimes. It's a cost to something because it costs something to someone who doesn't just abandon herself in that work. Nobody's going to do that work for you. That has to be work that you do yourself. And, that's not something that's small, doing that within yourself. That's actually everything. That's everything that ultimately, when you start to do this for yourself, then you start to set that new standard of how others will do that with you, right? Because you've done that for yourself. And so you've built this because you want more than just safety. You want this fulfillment in life. You want this connection. You want this intimacy, this like partnership that's available to you if that is the thing that didn't cost you yourself, right? And the cost to ourselves feels so high, that it's like, maybe that's why we've prevented those things from us. But it's like, you really deep down want the love that felt like home instead of a hostage situation, or the connection with your partner that felt like, God, I could just, it's okay. I could let it all go here because I'm just completely safe. Right. And it's not going to be used against me, whatever I share. Right. Or I'm not going to be seen any different. I could just be seen just as myself, that I'm human, and I'm feeling this, and, I'm needing extra support, whatever it is. Right. The safety that you're really wanting, the safety that was in service of that, it was never meant to replace it. Right. The version of you who is reading this clearly, who could see the pattern, who is like, knows what she needs, she can articulate it, she's done the work, she's becoming someone probably for the first time that she actually respects, right? Like, she's ready, she's been ready, and she just needs to hear that that door is opening from the inside so that she can actually move herself through what it looks like to actually receive that, right? To be able to actually hold it.
Yeah, it's like, what would you actually do with your life if you really trusted yourself to handle whatever came with it? Not the other people, but like trusted yourself to handle it, and only were worried about what you were going to do with it.
If you're listening today and you built your independence, right? And I want to name this, and I'm in the beginning of the episode, right? The episode is the cage you built from independence, the cage she built from independence. That independence is going to look different for every woman, right? But know the independence that you built came from a real place of pain, because you knew what it cost you to get here. So if the walls went up because you genuinely needed them to, then we want you to hear this today, that at that time, those walls did their fucking job, right? They protected. You were safe, right? You already protected yourself. And so the fear that someone is going to come in and take what you built, they can't, right? Because that's not what's happening from the version of you that exists now. You already proved that. You are not the person who lost herself that last time. You have new information. You have new capacity. You have new evidence. You have a new ability to see it coming and to name it and to hold the line. And so that protection that you had, it was like this little thing that, like, oh, we've been here before, right? And so that protection worked. And I think this is where, like, the protection sometimes, like, we name it as fear, but it's actually the thing that, like, is fear's not driving here. It's just in the car. It's just reminding you of, like, hey, right? Like, speed limit's changing, or, whatever, like, hey, there's a hazard coming up, right? Like, it's the thing that allows you to have more information so that you can continue going back to that trust that you built. And now that you get to decide what you do with the life that you built, and how you protected it, rather than just having it be decided for you out of fear. Like, now you get to decide what you actually want to do with it. And I think that's something that we don't give ourselves enough credit for. Like, in the moment when that's happening, it's like, okay, I built this thing out of protection, but now that I'm here, like, I get to decide how I protect it, per se, rather than just doing it off of default.
Yeah, because you didn't build it so that it could be a cage. That was a destination that you just stay stuck in, right? You built it so that you could leave it and come back and leave again on your own terms for whatever was needed for that next season of your life. And you could do it with your whole self being intact throughout that process. And that's what all of that work is for. That's what it's all leading up to. So, something that I want the listeners to focus on this week is if you were to identify one place that you've been keeping this door closed, and not because it's a situation that doesn't deserve your presence, right? Like something that you intentionally actually want in your life, but maybe you don't fully trust yourself in it yet. Can you ask yourself honestly, like, is that still true, or is that old information? Is this an old pattern that's playing out? Because you're not who you were in that previous season, and you've already proven that to yourself. So can you act like it?
Yeah. It's time to act like it. And if this episode today names something in you that you've been silently carrying, can you share it with a woman in your life who's maybe built the safety and forgot that that was a launch pad? Right? It's like, let's get ourselves good again and then let's go back out there, right? Because I'm sure if something hit in you, it will definitely hit something in her. We always appreciate you guys listening. And as always, be gentle with yourself when you're listening to an episode that maybe hits you in a place that you needed to hear. Run some things back, right? Share it with someone else. And, as always, like, we want to hear some feedback from you guys, like, share, subscribe. Like if something stood out to you, drop the one-liner that like rang true to you or stuck with you after the episode. That's what we really want to know. Like, what hit you different here? Because then that allows us to know that we're giving you guys what you're wanting here.
Yeah, like what offered a different perspective? What made you think about it differently?
Yeah.
What do you want to hear more about?
That's
too. What we really want to know. But yeah, hit us with the 5 stars. Please, please, please leave a review. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you want. And we'll see you next time.
Yes. See you in the next episode. Bye.